I think, Malcolm X and Sister Betty, your mom, would have, what kind of message would they be, saying to the people right now? There's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And of course, there's also a lot of poor people who don't have access to, your mask and your gloves and your sanitizers, etc. That you have prisoners, right? You have the prisoners are like sitting ducks with this coronavirus. You know what I mean? So you have those vulnerable, populations. You have the elderly. You have people affected with HIV/AIDS here in South Africa. Because we have the highest percentage of a country that actually carries people with HIV/AIDS. Now, the failed leadership in America. What kind of message do you think they would come out with at this time?
Well, I think that you have some presidents, the various nations on the continent who said, listen, don't bring your coronavirus vaccinations over here. We are not guinea pigs to try and figure out what is going to work and what's not going to work. I think, again, what is extremely important is to understand that we cannot look to others to take care of us, right? But that we have to come together and figure these things out ourselves. I mean, this has got to teach us something, right? Because certainly there are many doctors, there are many professors, there are many activists. It's about time that new leadership emerges, right? Because when we have people who are still going out and hanging out, clearly no one has told them, you need to go home. You need to stay home.
Right.
Right?
Is it they haven't been told, or they're taking it for granted, or they don't think it's a pandemic happening out there?
Again, not understanding the specifics.
Yeah.
And so it means that our leadership has to step in and make sure that a lot of these young people are at home. A long time ago, there was this research conducted with the dolls, a black doll, a white doll, identical dolls, but different colors. Wow. And all these little children selected the white dolls because the white dolls were good, happy, and productive. The black doll was bad, dumb, and all of these negative things. Yeah. Right. And all of these little brown children were picking the white dolls. And so we have to understand in some cases, these little children have grown up to be adults. Right. So still they have been misinformed, miseducated, brainwashed, which means that the leadership, people like you, people like us, we have to step in and make sure they understand. Right. That we can't just, look at them and complain about what they're doing. We have to take responsibility and understand they're doing what they're doing because we have not stepped in to let them know. If we didn't have a Malcolm or a Mandela or a King, where would we be? If we didn't have Lumumba, Biko, all these people, where would we be? So we have to continue that legacy. It is our responsibility. And I have seen so many really dynamic young people, young leaders. And so it's important that we support them. Yeah. Self-love is key. My mother made sure that I loved who I am. I love me. And because I love me, I love you unconditionally. Yeah. However, if I see, it's not going to be healthy, then I know how to find other people. But it is extremely important to make sure that I care for you as much as I care for me. And that's the only way we're going to go forward. Right. So if we see children who have no idea that this is serious, that people are dying, it's our responsibility to make sure they understand, not to criticize them, not to look down on them, but to help. Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, sister. And I mean, the vaccine has shown us that Africa, you are on your own. It's time that we work together across all different segments of society,
And then let me tell you something. Yeah. If you are on your own, you've got brilliant people there. You've got brilliant, such brilliance. And that's what the observation was when it was Macaulay, who made a presentation to the British Parliament in 1835. And these are the things that he said. When you go online and Google it now, instead of it saying Africa, people have made it as though he was talking about India, but he was talking about Africa. The one I have says he was talking about Africa.
Jesus.
And so what it says is that we are capable, if we were capable way before Christopher Columbus, then certainly the indigenous people around the world are still capable, and many people need our leadership.
100%, 100%. I've realized one thing about the leadership today. They have forgotten their humanity, the simple, common things that we share as humanity, you know? And that's what I think we have the responsibility to remind the world of our common shared humanity and therefore our common shared destiny.
Right.
Sister, before I let you go, now I know you do some amazing work with the Malcolm X Center in Harlem. Can you please tell our audience today the kind of work you do with your organization and how they can follow you, what social media, etc., etc.
Well, so the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial and Education Center right now is being used. It's being used for quite a few things, but our purpose is to be certain to educate, inspire the next generation to ensure that they are prepared to navigate through society, understanding the importance of preserving history, of investing in children. It is the place where my father was martyred, assassinated in 1965. There's a lot of work that we've put out on Malcolm and on Betty. I think it's important that we, because again, what Macaulay said is the history and the education of the African people had to be taken away from them, and they had to feel inferior to other things, right? So what this says is it's important. And so for so long we heard, oh, Africans, they never had history. They didn't write, they didn't preserve history, but we know that's not true. So it is important that we take hold of our artifacts, of all of the history, right? And that we preserve it for the purpose of future generations. So when they're looking for a cure for a virus, that we can go back to some medical records and find viruses, that we can call on doctors and so forth, which I'm sure is happening there, but that's not the message that's getting out. It appears always that Africa has its hand out and is needing someone to help them, when really we can be those that are helping everyone, right?
That is true. That is true. 100%.
And so our Shabazz Center is in New York, where my father was, gunned down in 1965. And I have books, I have a website, I have a children's book, middle school books, young adult books that I'll be doing some readings for and posting them live. So, listen, we just want to stay together and connected and really try to outlive this virus because, again, as my father said, people who have been in power, we are discovering they've misused power. And now there's got to be a new leadership here. So, Ndaba, I want to ask you, what would your parents, especially your father, whom I loved so much, and I have to say, I loved him so much. If he was alive today, what would he say about this current condition that the world is finding itself in?
Well, I mean, I think he would, one of the first things he would definitely ask for is for leaders to actually come together during this time and share information and share strategies and share their plans of how we can protect the world. That's number one, because we don't do enough of that, right? Everybody's always trying to be number one, trying to be the best, But during this time when you have an epidemic, everybody needs to come together, right? And find the best solutions, because like you said, he was a man who dreamed of having an Africa where the leaders would come together and solve all problems and not have the world, the United Nations, or have, the world or the IMF or the World Bank coming to tell us how to develop our nations. Now, we also have under the Nelson Mandela rules, which are international standards of prison adopted by the United Nations member states. This is what it states in the United Nations. When the state deprives a person of their liberty, it is obliged to provide a duty of care, Prisoners should enjoy the same standards of healthcare that are available in the community and should have access to necessary healthcare services free of charge without discrimination on the grounds of their legal status. Now, we have seen here in Africa, Ethiopia released 4,000 prisoners, right? We have Ghana, who released over 400 prisoners. Now, unfortunately, these are the only two countries on the continent who have actually released prisoners because they don't understand, I believe, they don't understand that the prisoners are so much at risk. You have the prison staff, right, who are going in and out, right, who are taking corona home and from home, bringing it into the prison, right? And so these prisoners have no way to actually protect themselves at all. So for me, it's really about looking after the most underprivileged people of society.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not working. Yes, you're right. Right.
So Ilyasah, I must say thank you very much. Our time is up. I am so grateful that you made the time for us. I know you're a very busy person.
Listen, I'm not as busy as I used to be. I'm not, because I'm not traveling anymore. Everybody's always like, oh, do I need to college your schedule? And I'm like, I'm not traveling. I'm home. I'm quarantined, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm quarantined. I'm teaching my students on class. I would love to have you come in and be our surprise speaker. Because we're
Please,
still
let me
doing
know.
that. Yeah,
Just
we're
send me
still
a,
doing.
shoot me a text for sure.
Yes, yes. So listen, I love you. I love South Africa. You know,
Love you.
I've been there. Soweto, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban. I've been throughout the continent, but I really, really love South Africa. It is one of the most beautiful places ever. And I just pray that we will be on the other side of this and that you will still have South Africa as your homeland,
Yeah.
that, you know, it is important. The indigenous people of the lands, it's important to acknowledge, you
Yeah.
know, all of these great things. And I thank you so much for having me on. You know, I love you always. Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Love
And I'm
you.
so
God
happy
bless
you're
you.
alive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
sister.
All right.
Push for a hug. Ciao.